You are listening to the Fire Rescue Athlete Podcast with your host, Aaron Zamzow.
What's going on, everybody? Aaron Zamzow here with the Fire Rescue Athlete Podcast. So today, I wanted to talk about something that I'm actually surprised I've not done a podcast on this already. I say that about a lot of topics, but it's one that I've gotten a lot of questions for. I've been doing some seminars now. If you're listening to this right now, we're in 2020. Hopefully you're listening to this 2 years, 3 years, and it transcends time. But right now we're in the middle of a pandemic and there's a lot of virtual seminars going on. I've been very fortunate to be able to do some of those seminars for firefighters all over the world, actually. And one of the common questions that I get from everyone is, what is the one fitness trait that every firefighter needs? You know, what is that one thing that we all need to make sure that we have? And it sparks in it a lot of questions, right? So if you're listening to this, you're thinking, well, you need strength. So is it, do I need to be able to lift a lot? Or some would say and argue that you need cardiovascular endurance because you need to be able to perform on air over a long period of time. And, it sparks some great discussions. And, over the last 12 years, I've formulated my theories on it. And so I decided, hey, let's do a little research behind this and see what does the research say. And I found a great article from York University about some research that just basically talks about physical demands of firefighting. So let's start with this. What do we really do right on the fire ground? We encounter applications of strength and endurance where we're lifting and carrying objects about 80 pounds. We pull objects like hose line and sometimes patients and other objects of about 135 pounds. And we work with a lot of that in front of our body. And then from a standpoint of measuring, how much oxygen or how much energy we require by doing some cardiovascular stuff, we use VO2 max or submax testing. With athletes, we do that a lot to figure out exactly what their cardiovascular capacity is. And for firefighting, typically the mean is about 42 milliliters per kilogram per minute, which is it's just a lactate concentration that they a number that they use. And the research also found basically it corresponds to about 85. I mean, typically we're in that 85 to 50% VO2 max on the fire ground. I would argue that it's even higher than that. But the standard firefighter needs about a VO2 max of about 41 to 45. Now, what does that mean? It means that you got to be in cardiovascular shape. It also means that you got to be able to strong enough to carry heavy loads. You need to be able to do that upstairs, downstairs, pull, drag, push, carry, climb, crawl with heavy gear on air. So when you think about it, you're like, okay, the research was maybe a little bit over my head and over a lot of people's heads. But basically, when you break down what we do on the fire ground, you need every fitness trait. And let me give you an example. Let's say, for instance, you're a marathon runner listening to this. And my example is I did the Ironman in 2011. And I use the example that, people are like, wow, you must have been in great shape. Well, yeah, I was in great shape. If Chief left his radio, at the station and needed someone to run to go get it. Marathon runners, Ironman athletes, we train to go low and slow over a long period of time. It's not what we do on the fire ground. All right, now let's look at somebody who could bench press 300 pounds or deadlift like 600 pounds, right? A lot of times they do it in one max, like a one max rep, a maximum repetition, right? Well, if you're lifting 600 plus pounds or pushing that off your chest on the fire ground, I think you got other issues and other things to worry about, right? No, I'm not saying that you shouldn't go out and run a marathon or that you should try to bench press or deadlift heavy. But what I want you to do is get in this framework of what really helps you do your job as a firefighter, EMT, and paramedic. Now, if you could just bench press 600 pounds one time and then you're gassed, or if you add so much muscle doing those exercises that you burn a bottle before you can actually fulfill the requirement of doing a search when you're on the fire ground. My question is, what good is that doing? If you run marathons and run all the time, but lack strength to carry equipment up steps or lift a hoist a ladder when needed, what good is that fitness? And that's why it goes back to, what is the best fitness trait? I honestly believe it's balance. It's a balance of all of them. In some sports, when I used to work with athletes, my linemen, you could get away with being really, really strong and powerful, right? Defensive backs, you had to be fast, quick. Soccer players, you need to have endurance. Firefighters, we need to have all of that stuff because we just don't know what we're training for. The fire ground is very diverse. You could be doing hose load or fire hose advancement, up steps on air, come out, carry a bunch of stuff, drag a bunch of stuff, lift ladders, right? Come out, go back in, do an overhaul. And that's one call. Go back home, hydrate, do it all again, or go carry a patient down 3 flights of steps. My point with this whole podcast is that you need to look at your fitness a little bit differently than most, and that we can't really categorize it with one particular fitness trait. You need to have balance. You need to have strength. You need to have endurance. You need to have mobility. You need to have core strength. And then you need to be able to do it all again and use all those again. So break down what we do on the fire ground and then think about, what your program is. So if you're one of these people that goes back to lifting like you traditionally lifted when you're in high school or played football or played volleyball or whatever, is that necessarily the best thing for you as a firefighter? And I see it all the time, right? I've been very fortunate, not this year, of course, can't travel, but in the last 8 years, I've gone all over the country to firehouses and seminars. And, someone looks at me and goes, hey, I want to get back into shape. And I'll ask, well, what are you doing? What is your plan? Well, I'm going to go back and do, what I used to do. Why? Because you're comfortable? Because everybody in the firehouse does chest and triceps, back and biceps. They skip leg day. Then they forget abs. They don't work the mobility, and they try to throw in a little bit of cardio one time a week. Look, I've seen it 100 times. I used to do that. But the older I get, the more I realize I need to be stronger. I need to be smarter. I need to be more mobile than I used to be. And you as a firefighter, hopefully you're like, yeah, I know you're right. I know you're right. What good is a 300-pound bench if you can't reach your arms behind you to put your SCBA on? And I've seen that. So much strength anteriorly and a lack of mobility. Guys blow their shoulder out trying to do, just an activity like where they reach up behind their head. Likewise, if you're a marathon runner, you have really, really tight IT bands and you can't lift your leg or you don't have the strength. So you must think about your fitness a little bit differently. Think about it as balance. And you need to do that and build your balance in a functional manner, in a periodized manner. A lot of times people will say that conditioning, general conditioning is your most important fitness trait for a firefighter because that's where you start. And I would say, maybe. But you have to start with conditioning, right? If you haven't been doing anything, my suggestion to you is work on mobility, core strength, and doing some walking and moving, biking, something cardio for the first couple of days, 2 weeks. Then start building in strength. And once you add cardio, conditioning, and strength, then I'm going to tell you to throw in power movements, which are intervals, which can be more of that strength, full body strength. That's why I don't think body part training really, really is good for us as firefighters, especially if you're trying to get back into shape. Now, there's an argument, and I actually have a program. You could call me, you might be calling my bluff right now and saying, hey, Zam, don't you have a super strong program where you break down body parts? And say, yes, I do. But we do it systematically, and I never start anybody with that program. With Fire Rescue Fitness, we've actually devised about a whole year's worth of workouts where you start with a foundations program, you go to a fat loss program, you go to the Ultimate Athlete 1, 2, and then you'll go into super strong. And what we did is we systematically said, you're going to do chest, tricep, back, bicep, legs, and then you'll work full body down the week, and then fire ground movements. Okay, but for you, if you're looking at how do I get back into shape, don't go do chest and triceps, please. Don't go body part training. You don't isolate body parts on the fire ground. So build that conditioning phase, full body strength, then add some power, some interval movements, and all along the way, you're working your core and your mobility, and you got a very solid program. I've gone to many, many fire departments, and I've watched what people do, and I see the equipment in their firehouses. And a lot of times there's P90X, there's, again, the bodybuilding programs. There's CrossFit, and we can get into a whole different, discussion about that. But what I want you to understand, and the takeaway from this is that, look, you need to have balance. You need to work all those different components. And what happens is that we go back to what we're really, really comfortable with instead of what we know we're supposed to actually work on. I think a lot of times we go back to that bodybuilding program because it's what we used to do. And I'm encouraging you to step back, think about your career, think about those that you work with, think about those that you represent, for your crew, your community, your family, and train smarter, train better, be better, right? Be better physically. And I'll tell you what, I even have a free program for you to start with, because I got people to say, well, how should I start training? And when coronavirus started, I had, I'll be honest, I had to scramble because some people were using some programs of mine that required them to be in a gym. And so what I did is I came up with a 40-day program. You can use it from your home. You can use it from a firehouse. It doesn't include a lot of equipment. But what it's going to do is it's going to build you systematically, add some conditioning, add some strength, and then get you and introduce you some power movements, but train you properly for the job, and it's free. And I'll leave a link to that program in the description of what the podcast is. But ultimately, what I want you to do is to think about approaching your fitness from the standpoint of, when I work out, I need to think about improving performance, reducing injuries, and prolonging my career. It's not about having good biceps and what I look like in the calendar, although that's really great. But I found very few programs out there that do like the bodybuilding kind of workouts that really address performance. Okay. Or what happens is that those programs have those components, but you skip them. And that's really what happens. So with FRF, what we recommend, or what I recommend, and what's worked, we have research, we have thousands of athletes, firefighters, EMTs, medics that have used them, is you start with an active movement, you work into core, do full body strength, intervals, and fire ground movements. And then you incorporate that kind of mindset into a program. And so you're not kind of willy-nilly in it and going down one day doing this workout, next day doing this workout. You have a program. And that's what we did with this 40-day. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I want you to utilize it. And people go, well, what's in it for you, Aaron? I mean, how do you stay in business? My intention here is, look, I want to help 100,000 firefighters, EMTs, and medics improve their fitness. If I can get this program into your hands, I know it works. I know it's going to make you stronger. I know it's going to make you more mobile. I know it's going to help you on the fire ground. And then you're going to want more. You'll say, okay, what's the next program? Right? And then you're going to pass it on. And that way we as a fire service become more fit, we become more motivated, and we help more people that way. So, all right. That's all I got for you guys today. The most important firefighter fitness trait is a balanced program. It's one that, you look at what we do on the fire ground, you approach it like an athlete, and you work on your fitness. Now, I know there is a lot of factors that go into it. There's nutrition, and we have some great podcasts on that. We have a lot of resources at firerescuefitness.com. I hope you go to them and utilize them. If you think I'm full of it, let me know. If you think I'm onto something or on something, send out a message on the contact me form on firerescuefitness.com. If you have some, thoughts on what we're talking about here or ideas for other podcasts, I'd love to hear about them. I'm here to help you out. I'm here to grow the message, and I'm here to make sure that you train like an athlete and continually try to improve who you are as a firefighter and as a person. So with that, I leave you with stay safe, stay positive, and get FRF, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Fire Rescue Athlete Podcast. with your host, Aaron Zamzow. Please tune in again soon for more fitness tips for fire rescue athletes.